Today we're going to get into divorce advice from my ex-husband. But before we do that, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do so you don't miss out on any episodes related to raising kids and healing post-divorce. Now, like I mentioned, we're going to get into my ex-husband's head a little bit today. Now, obviously you're hearing this from my mouth and not his, but we have a really good relationship and we've had some conversations over the last few months, but one in particular, which I'm going to share with you today, on divorce and what makes for a good, smooth divorce process. Now, let me set the stage of this, how this conversation happened. We were both sitting in my daughter's hospital room. He had just flown over to Bali for my daughter's surgery. She got sick while we were there and needed urgent surgery. So he was there and we were spending a lot of time together, way more time than probably either of us would have ever envisioned spending time together post-divorce. Now, sitting in a hospital room, I was on my phone scrolling, listening to videos. I didn't have my headphones in for whatever reason. And as you can imagine, in my line of work, I consume a lot of content related to divorce. And he overheard one video, and I couldn't even tell you at this point what the video was about, but it sparked a conversation about divorce. Now, he and I have had many people in our lives, friends, coworkers, mutual and separate, who have gone through or are going through divorce. So we are hearing it from all angles. And of course, being in my line of work, I have a lot of conversations with different people, moms and dads, about what divorce looks like, and even dating. There's a lot of conversations about what people are going through, obviously dating in our 40s, usually post-divorce. So we see the whole spectrum from amicable to just burning things down, things going down in flames. And him and I were kind of this discussion, and we've had numerous discussions since of like holy crap, how can you be married to someone and just be so just burning things down, toxic at each other in a divorce process. And we look at ourselves and we're like, thank goodness that we have done things the way we've done, and we've noticed some differences. And my ex-husband summed up sort of perfectly in one succinct sentence basically his assessment of what makes for a good divorce versus a bad divorce. And are you ready for it? He's just like, I think people's problem is that they just need to be adults. Just be a grown-up. Stop being petty, stop being childish, stop pointing fingers saying she started it, or this getting into this tit for tat retaliation. Just be a grown-up. Now, it has been months since this conversation, and it has stuck in my head because it's so simple, but pretty accurately captures why people are having such problems. And a lot of divorce problems could be solved if we were just willing to put on our big girl pants or our big boy pants and discuss things like grown-ups, rather than having that inner child, that childish tendencies come out in fighting. So I want you to imagine what that would look like if both of you were showing up as grown-ups. And I actually challenge you to look back on your conversations, your experiences, your negotiation, your situation, and look for instances or examples or circumstances where you have been childish. We all have been there. This is not saying that you're at fault for anything. This is just saying that our ex and this situation, especially this high stakes situation when kids are involved, it can be really triggering. And when we're triggered, that 5-year-old version of ourselves is coming out, that 14-year-old angry teenager is coming out, and we are just showing up in a non-adult sort of way. We slip into that, it's not fair, why me? I can't let him get away with that. It's all childish. All of that is childish. And it's actually really empowering to know this. Now, when I was teaching positive parenting classes a number of years ago, I had this chart that I used and I would give to parents to help them decode their child's behavior. Because if you know about kids, you'll know that all misbehavior is miscommunication, which means our child is telling us something when they act out. And it's our job as parents not to get triggered by them, but to actually decode what they're really telling us. And one of the key indicators to figuring out their behavior is how it makes us feel. What does it trigger inside of us? Because when you think about relationship dynamics, and in this case, the parent-child dynamic, in the divorce case, it's the relationship with your ex and that dynamic. When you are stuck in a pattern, when you're stuck in a loop, when you're stuck in a cycle that you can't seem to break out of, in this repeated pattern, that is working. There is something about that pattern and that dynamic that is working. Now, it might not be working for you, but it might be working for your ex. So the key to changing that pattern is breaking the responses. And once you can clue into your responses and your triggers and what it's bringing up in you, that gives you an indication of what the other person is trying to get out of it. So for example, if you are in a situation, like when you think of the child relationship, we all know that kids need attention and they need control, or they need to feel like they're in power. That's where you hear power struggles. Well, the same thing happens with adults. There's key reasons and motivations why we do what we do. So if you're in a power struggle with someone, you are going to notice some things come up in you that will give you clues that you're in a power struggle and it's actually control that the other person is wanting, or even you. So if you're feeling like he can't make me, oh no you didn't, or you're wanting to win, those are indicators that you are in a power struggle. And if you act from those feelings of you can't make me or wanting to win, then you slip into those childish tendencies. You're not acting like a grown-up, and this is impacting your divorce. It's impacting your co-parenting relationship. It is impacting your ability to heal, and it is impacting your child or your children, because they are having adults acting like children. Their parents are acting like children when they need grown-ups. So because your feelings are a key indicator, this is why it's so important to start to recognize how you're feeling, noticing your patterns, because noticing what is going on within the context of the fight or the conflict is the very first step to healing. It is the very first step from going from childish response to responding like a grown-up. And I know that you do not want to stay stuck in petty arguments that go nowhere and cost you thousands of dollars in legal fees and impact your child and impact your nervous system and your stress levels. I know you don't want to be there. And there is a part of you, that inner child that has not been healed, that ego part of you that wants to stay in that pattern because it's not fair. It wants to win. It wants to look good and the other person to look bad. And at times, that part of you is going to be strong, it's going to be loud, and it's probably not going to want to back down without a fight. And this is where conscious awareness really comes into play here, because when we can get into being in this dynamic and the ability to observe it, that is when the healing happens. And this is absolutely possible. And when you can do this, you can see what is playing out within your co-parenting dynamic, within your divorce negotiations, within the conflicts that are going on in your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly lives. And when you can step into observer mode and see things, see the game that is being played out in front of you from an observer perspective, your ex then doesn't have control of you because you're not sucked into the drama. You're not getting sucked in. You're just observing, oh, this is the dynamic at play. Okay, cool. I'm seeing the bigger picture here. I'm seeing all the pieces here. I'm seeing that this response normally gives me this result, so I'm going to try something different. So when we can step into this observer mode, common sense comes back to us. Our grown-up adult selves come back to us. Our triggers are not hijacking our brains. And this is really empowering, because it's empowering to see your ex's patterns, but it's also empowering to see your own patterns and how you are contributing to this dynamic. And this is not coming from a place of blame. It's never coming from a place of blame. But when you can see how you are contributing, you can see what needs to be done to fix it and what is within your control to fix it. You don't need to wait for your ex to change. You start to understand that you have the power to change the whole dynamic just by changing your responses and your reactions. And that is so empowering, because what tends to happen in this dynamic with our ex is we feel like They're doing things that we can't control, and it's completely triggering us and affecting our nervous system, and we kind of feel helpless and defeated, and we start to shrink down. But when we start to understand that we actually have more power than we think, then we can rise up and assess the situation and make decisions to move us in a different direction. And you'll remember what I said earlier, that when you changed your response, he's going to be forced to change, because what happens when you're stuck in a pattern is that it is working. Remember what I said? It is working. It is working for someone. It is working for some reason. And when you shift that pattern by changing your response, the whole pattern changes because it has to. It's no longer working. So start to notice your patterns. Start to notice what is going on before, during, and after your arguments, before, during, and after you get triggered or go into retaliation mode. Noticing your patterns is powerful. Noticing what is going on is powerful, because you can be in it and see it and observe it at the same time. So this is the self-awareness that we need to break out of those childish patterns that are keeping you playing this low-level game, that are preventing you from having a peaceful co-parenting dynamic, that are impacting your children. Like, we can see that when we are in conflict with the other person in their life that they love, like they love both their parents the most out of anyone in their life, and when we are in conflict, it dims our kids' light. They feel like they are in a no-win situation, and it's not good for them. So be a grown-up. Learn to be a grown-up. Learn to notice your patterns so you can get out of this childish dynamic and into a place that's going to be ultimately healthy for you and your kids. So notice your patterns, start to make different choices, and take it one step at a time. And remember, I am always here cheering you on every step of the way. And if you need help figuring this out, DM me on Instagram and we can see if one-on-one coaching is right for you. And I will see you next time.